Keeping things organized in Lightroom Classic is key to long-term success, especially when it comes to finding your images in the future. In this video, I'm going to show you what I do to utilize Lightroom's tools to flag and otherwise categorize items for keeps, get things trashed, and then what we do for file renaming for long-term, just making sense of it all. So thanks for joining me. Let's get right to it. So let's dive right into these chickens and horses and see what we're going to do here with these images and understanding about keeping some and getting rid of some. The first thing I like to do is getting into the loop view, and I can do that by either hitting the E keyboard shortcut, or if I hit G, I'll go back to grid and I can just double click on the image. And again, double clicking will take me back to the grid view. In this grid view, I do have the option to increase my thumbnail size, and that'll probably be the only thing I'll look at as far as that's concerned in this video, but the rest of the items will come in a future video. So when I'm trying to decide which ones do I want to keep, which ones do I want to get rid of, I want to be able to do this quickly. And so by using my arrow keys, I can hop back and forth from picture to picture. And so when I'm doing that, I can look at this and say, you know what, that's probably a keeper. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll go ahead and not flag it either way. But this one, the bird is looking away from me. Not sure what good that's going to do me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the X key. And you can see there it says set as rejected was put on the screen for just a few seconds. And then I move along. Okay, here he is looking a little more at me. But now I need to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and click on him right there, and I can see, you know what, that's probably a little bit soft. But did you see what happened there? It was building that preview. That's that one-to-one preview that it had to build, and that's where when I'm finally ready to go through with my initial selection, I might go ahead and do those one-to-one previews at a later time. That's where, okay, this one I might go ahead and say, yeah, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. I'll keep that one. I'll get rid of that one. Definitely get rid of that one. This one I'm going to pretend I don't know what I want to do, so I'm going to keep it for now. And that one I'll keep for now. Looking good, nice. I'll go ahead and get rid of that one. Get rid of those, and I'm going to hit X. Some of these are a little bit too bright too. I was a little bit too ambitious on my exposure. And so this one's a little bit better on my exposure. So I'll keep that one around. I'll get rid of that one and maybe keep that one as well. All right, that's just one way of categorizing images where you hit the X key and it will basically get rid of those images. It'll flag those images, but it doesn't necessarily get rid of them yet. So when we're looking at this, what we want to do then is go up here to the menu item photo, and I'm going to hit delete rejected photos. And by deleting those, I have a choice. I can either remove from Lightroom, which leaves them right where they are on the hard drive, doesn't mess with them, or I can delete from disk, which will effectively move them to trash. And so they're not in the deletion area yet, but they're about to be deleted. When I go to Finder, empty trash, then they're going to be completely gone. But these will be removed from Lightroom and moved to trash, prepared for deletion, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. All right, so that was hitting the X key. What if there was something I wanted to look at it and say, hey, this is something I want to really hone in on and look at that picture. I want to do a really good, something with that picture. Well, let's look at those items. But first, I'm going to select all these images, and I'm going to come down here to previews, and then I'm going to build one-to-one previews, and we can see how long this is going to take for these 13 images. And so we have the progress going across up here again. It'll always show us the progress of what it's working on. And for 13 images, it's not going to be bad. Probably just a minute or less. But now what I can do with this image, when that preview is already built now, I can just zoom in and I can tell right away there's none of this processing where I have this low res preview and then all of a sudden, oh, here you go. Here's your high-res preview. It's just there, and that's kind of nice. So this dialog box, one-to-one previews were built or already exist for 13 photos. I wish it were a little more smart and didn't say already exist, but whatever. You could hit the don't show again if you wanted. Take a look over here in this navigator. You can see exactly where in the photo we are concentrating our view on. I could click over here and look in the background and do other things like this. But since this is really just a junky image, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the X key now again anyway. I'm going to zoom back out, and as I go to the next one, I'll be, zoomed out again. But let's take a look here. When I zoom in here now, that one looks pretty good and sharp. When I just hit the button, that the arrow button that moves me to the next image, I'll stay zoomed in. But since the framing shifted, I need to then shift what I'm looking at here. All right, that's pretty cool. That's pretty good. Not too bad. I'm going to go ahead and click on this item here where it says 50%, and then I can see a little more of the bird here. And then as I come back to this, okay, we're good. And now when I click, it goes between the fit and the 50% now, not the fit and the 100% like it was. So it just kind of changed its default behavior there. All right, this one, I'm not going to get rid of it, but now I'm going to start using the star rating. So I have 1 through 5, so I'm going to hit the 1, and you can see it set rating to 1. And then down here in the lower portion, it has a single star coming in. And then when I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out on this, and this is where I said I was going to pretend that this was a good image. I'm going to definitely do a 1 on this image too, because it's not a very good image. Assuming that 5 would be the highest one and 1 is the lowest rating. All right, so this is where I have to make a decision because these are all sharp, but as far as that head position is concerned and the overall everything, this one's maybe a 2, and this one's probably a 4, and this one's probably also a 4. We'll go ahead and consider this a 5 because it's nice and a little more present, but I'm going to zoom in again and look at that bird's details in that bird's eyes. And I can see it's a little bit soft, so I'm going to take it back down to a 3 or so because it's slightly soft. All right, with the horses, we can do the same idea there. And so this is just things where you can see these are different ways of categorizing and otherwise culling. We've already gotten rid of some images, but now we're doing a little bit of categorizing with these images. And we're starting to apply some ideas as it relates to this is good, this is bad, whatever the case is. So those are some ways to think about organizing your images, getting a little bit of an idea in there that says, how do I want to make sure that I highlight, somehow I mark the images that I definitely want to keep and I definitely want to, just not get rid of, basically, by starring them, by flagging them. These are different ways that you can identify things in Lightroom that might make sense to your process for how you want to identify what you're keeping. All right, so now let's get into file renaming, because if I were to send these out to somebody, either as JPEG previews or anything like that, I want them to have names that make sense. To me, this name down here, 1M0A, or that might be an O, I don't know, 4663.cr2, that means nothing to me. So I'm going to go ahead and do a selection where I hit every one of them. I hit Shift and I clicked on the end. You can also incidentally do just a Command A and everything will be selected. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to Library, and I'm going to then hit this Rename Photos item here. And so with this Rename Photos, I've got, it understands I have 7 selected, and so I have custom settings set up here. So let's go ahead and edit our custom settings, because here we can see it's going Bergherm_P1-01.cr2. What is all that about? How did that get set up? Well, let's do the edit item here, and then we're going to see what's going on. So we've entered a custom text field. So this is this item down here. So if we wanted to enter it again, we just hit the insert. And so you can see how we're going to enter this custom text. Incidentally, the custom text is this item right here. All right, so let's get rid of that one. We then, after the custom text, I've inserted a hyphen right here. Now I can insert anything I want. And you can see how it adds it directly into the example file name for us. Now, if I wanted to really go crazy and put some end dashes, Option hyphen, we'll do an N dash, Option Shift hyphen, we'll do an M dash, so it's extra long. So then we can separate that out and say, okay, here's my custom text that I'm going to do whatever I want, but then this will go into every single file that I have, and then I'll do the sequencing, which is, in this case, is a 2-number sequence. I can make this, a huge different sequence. The just so many different options that you have here. You can throw in something related to the date. You can put that into the file name. You can do something like putting in the original file name, so you're not losing that actually in the file name itself, but you're going to keep that also in the file name. So here we could add that. So here it's Bergherm_P1 because that's what I have typed here, and then insert anything I want because that's what I have typed here, and then the original file name. And so there it is with that original file name. All right, I'm going to select that again, and I'm going to go sequence, and I'm going to do the 0 1s for 2 pieces, and then that just changed it right away to that sequencing. All right, so let's go ahead and change this back, and I'm just going to do the hyphen. Now I like the sequencing, so I can just have something count up. So I'm going to go on the farm, and then hyphen 0 1 is what it's going to end up being, and then of course it's going to end up with 0 7. All right, so now as I select on this one item, you can see it's on the farm, hyphen 02, and then hyphen 03. And we have renamed those photos to something that makes a little more sense. All right, the last thing we probably want to think about is now getting these into a folder that makes sense for long-term storage. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to go and I'm going to click on this one folder here. This is the folder where all these images exist. Actually, this one, for some reason, is left over from a test I was doing before, so I'm going to remove that folder. And on this folder, I'm going to tell it to show the parent folder. So it's going to go up one level to initial import 2, and it's going to show me that folder that's right in there. And then I'm going to need to do it one more time, because if you'll remember, I have a photos folder in my Bootcamp sample, and I want to recognize that photos folder. And so what we need to do now is I'm going to go to this plus, I'm going to go ahead and hit add folder, and then I'm going to come down here, I'm going to go to Bootcamp sample, I'm going to select photos, and I'm going to hit choose, and then now it brings us into this photos folder, and that is exactly what we want. So now what I need to think about too is, how am I going to organize these pictures? What do I want to do? Do I just want to call them on the farm? Do I want to call them something else? For today, I'm going to just simply call them on the farm. So now I'm going to right click and I'm going to hit create folder inside photos, and I'm just going to call it on the farm. And now I could do either one of two things. I can either take this dated folder and put it in here, or I can just grab all these pictures and just put it in there. I usually like to do the dated folder or some kind of date structure to it, but really in this case it doesn't really matter so much. So I'm just going to grab all these pictures, I'm going to drop them in on the farm, and it gives me a little bit of a warning saying, you're moving these files on disk. Are you sure you want to do that? I'm going to say, yep, I want to do that. Now here's the thing about moving these images like this. In Lightroom, there is a little bit of a history where Lightroom can actually lose some images if you're copying a lot of pictures over. For me, I have never had it lose any images when I'm doing a move like this, but I have heard many stories of people who have gobs and gobs of images and they're trying to move it all at once. I've just never done that because I edit ruthlessly and I'm only ever copying maybe 100 images at a time, if that, and even that's pushing it. So when we're looking at moving images around, you definitely want to do it in Lightroom, but if you have thousands of images to do, there's actually a way to do it outside of Lightroom and then tell Lightroom, hey, here's where those pictures are. And we'll probably get to that in a much later video, but we're not going to worry about it now. Just do everything in Lightroom as you're starting out for sure. All right, that wraps it up for us now on calling and file naming. We'll see you in the next video when we look at a little more on the file naming and folder structure type items. We're going to dive into my real catalog, and you'll see everything that we have to see there with my actual pictures and my actual process for how I'm doing things. And we'll then dive into some preferences set up and things like that. And then in section 2 of these videos, we're going to dive into the library module and learn all about these different things that are going on here in this library module. Thanks so much for being here. Until next time, happy shooting.